Hey, how's it going? The bros with my Bronies and Pegasus. This is the one, the only. It's on the free 2011, aka Criticism Guide 2009. Before I begin, real quick, this might have to be a two-part video, so if you don't want to stick around for the second part, you don't have to. But if you do, by all means, I very much appreciate that. And a shout out to the 5 people that ended up giving me a subscription or whatever. I forgot their names except for the first 2 I remember is Meow Kitties, and another shout out to Sydney the Pegasister. Definitely thanks a million for so much for the subscription. Same with Melissa Harvings or whatever. I forgot her last name. I think it's Melissa, but definitely shout out to her. She subscribed to my channel, so check her out. She only got like 12 subs, but you know what? She's an awesome chick. She does like anime music videos, AMVs, and a couple LPs here and there, and then she'll do some rants and stuff. Definitely check her out. So before we begin, also real fast, I might be getting a call pretty soon, so if I do have to do a part 2 in this video, like I said earlier, I'll let you guys know, okay? So without further ado, let's begin. So hopefully you read the title above and below. This is going to be a top 10 best legendary Pokemon of all time, in my opinion, of course. So without further ado, I'm putting him at number 10. You think I put Mewtwo at number 1, but you know what? I had to put him at number 10, but like I did in my last video, if he does get that upgrade, you know what? I'm going to be the happiest Pokemon fan ever, man. Even though some people are going to hate it, others will love it and accept it like I will. But at the end of the day, it's all Game Freak's decision and Core magazine. So, Mewtwo, what can I say about him? He's already like 17, 18 years old since the franchise even began back in 97 when I was 8 years old. Even though 7 Red and Blue came out in 96. But you know what? It was all good then, because my official game I didn't get was not until like later on I got Pokemon Silver. I didn't even get Red and Blue until like one of my cousins back in the days, I used to borrow games from him. So that I didn't actually own that game, but he let me keep it, which was cool. I don't have it anymore because I sold it back in 04 or 05 when I was around 14, 15 when I first got an old school job way back in the days and warehouse shit, long story. So yeah, you know what, he's made a lot of appearances in movies and a couple video games like Super Smash Brothers Melee, for instance, And then later on, they replaced him with Lucario when they made Brawl, which kind of sucked a little bit. But you know what? Shit happens. We got the budget cuts and all that. Can't blame Nintendo for that, But yeah, other than that, his other signature moves, he has a Shadow Ball thing or whatever. He was the first one that was ever able to use that. And what else did he use? He used a couple moves like Amnesia, Recovery. Very few Pokemon were able to use Recovery at that time, except Starmie, I think Lapras, and I think Hypno maybe. I'm not sure. I think Slowpoke. There's usually a lot of Psycho-type Pokemon that were able to use Recovery. Other things I could say about him, he was in 2 other movies after that, Mewtwo Strikes Back, and then the upcoming movie that just came out a couple weeks ago in Japan, Mewtwo vs. Genesect. So, yeah, he's a very huge legendary Pokemon, one of the first besides Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, the Bird Trio Pokemon. So I didn't really care for too many of them, except Zapdos. He was probably one of my favorites out of the 3. And, yeah, some people said Dragonite was a legendary Pokemon. I don't think he was, but he was still alright, too, And, yeah, that basically explains it for me, too. So, moving on from number 10 to number 9, Arceus. Well, let me tell you something about Arceus before people start jumping my throat about this shit. A lot of people say he's overpowered, but to me, you know what? It depends on what kind of plate that you give him, because he has the 16 plates the 16 different elements of the Pokemon world, which is, dark, water, electric, steel, grass, fire, etc., etc., etc. I'm not going to go through all of them. And psychic, and etc. Anyways, when Arceus first made its appearance in U.S., which was still in Japan at the time when Diamond and Pearl was still haven't arrived in the United States yet, and back in the days I was like in my junior year in high school when this shit came out in the 4th generation, Arceus was basically an unobtainable Pokemon, excuse me. Basically, what it comes down to is this guy right here, Arceus, who's the god of all Pokemon, Basically, I think its original typing was Psychic Steel or some shit like that. After you get Palkia and Dialga, you're supposed to go in Nintendo Wi-Fi events, or you could just cheat the old-fashioned way, use Action Replay or some kind of ROM hack, So it wasn't too much of a big deal to get this thing. I only caught him one time. It wasn't at the Wi-Fi events. I used my Action Replay for that shit because I wasn't going to waste $300-400 to go to some event from all the way fucking Japan over here to the U.S. Yeah, I don't got that kind of fucking money. I'm not Bill Gates, alright? So yeah, other than that, basically, what it comes down to, with Arceus, he was in 2 movies. Actually, no, he was in one of the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl episodes. I don't remember which one, but I know it was a very special event after they found Palkia and Dialga. And then another one with the Arceus movie. I did see that one. The one part where he gets like melted into that big giant lava thing and he turns into cement, but then he rises back from the dead and he basically just hauls ass. And whoever was the English voice actor that did that voice, I got to give him respect for that because he did a really tremendous job doing it. I don't know the guy's name, but whoever you are, big shout out for you, buddy, because you were awesome as Arceus' voice. So yeah, that basically explains it there. He was in Pokemon Battle Revolution too. That was very short-lived, but it was still alright. So coming in at number 8, we got this guy right here, Darkrai. And I was going to have a little paper to say everything about them, but you know what? I was too lazy to make it up, and I didn't want to waste any more printer paper because I still have to get printing ink later on, maybe on the weekend. We'll see. Yeah, Darkrai. Unfortunately, he was another Nintendo Wi-Fi event Pokemon, which you can only get from the Wi-Fi event like Comic-Con places, or you could just cheat your way like I did, once again, with Action Replay. I got him about 4, maybe 8 times at the most. I've only got 1 shiny Darkrai Pokemon. Very hard as shit to get, even with the hacks and Action Replay. It's still hard as fuck to get that thing. Unless you put all shiny Pokemon, then it's easy. Yeah, so what can I say about Darkrai? He had his signature ability, I think, which was called not Dream Eater. Something to do with dreams. I don't know what it was called, but I forgot. I know his signature move though, for a fact, I remember this shit, was Nightmare. And it's basically something whenever the Pokemon falls asleep, it's called Bad Dreams. That's what the ability was, Bad Dreams. It always gets hurt all the time. It's kind of like Curse a little bit, except it does less damage, doesn't do as much. And I don't know what it was, but every time I caught this Pokemon, I used to nickname this thing like Freddy Krueger because I don't know what it was. He had kind of a connection with Freddy Krueger because, he hurts and destroys Pokemon in their dreams. Same thing with Freddy Krueger. He always destroys and kills all of his victims in his dreams. So, Freddy Krueger and Darkrai kind of have, a little bit of a connection. I don't know what it was. I've always seen that, though. It's like, except he doesn't have the little fedora hat and the big giant, like, needle things as, these giant claw things like Wolverine. It's just a little bit different, One more thing I want to say about Darkrai. I actually have 2 cards of them as well in the EX collection, which is called Dark Explorers. I actually only got 1 of those packages. We might do another unboxing maybe next month. We'll see. And that's all I got to say about Darkrai. And he was in that movie, Palkia and Dialga, too. I forgot what it was called, but it was really good. Anyways, let's get on to the next one right here. Coming in at number 7. This is a very awesome Pokemon, in my opinion. He didn't get too much credit. I feel like he didn't get too much time to shine. But you know what? In the ROM hacks and all that, and the Nintendo Wi-Fi event, that's where he shined the most, especially in Pokemon Coliseum in the 3rd generation, Hoenn region, is Deoxys. And now the thing about Deoxys is some people said he was kind of like a rip-off of Mewtwo because he was a psychic type, except he was steel psychic, so it was a little bit different. So basically, with Deoxys, he had 3 different forms. He actually only had 2 forms at the time. He had his regular form, which was the first one, so that kind of doesn't count. And you can see on the other side, which I'm going to show you right now, right here, this was his average form. Then he had his speed form right here, which didn't come out until Emerald. Then he had his defense form. I forgot his attack form is something else. Hold on a second. Actually, no, that wasn't his speed form. That was his attack form. Yeah, another thing to say about Deoxys is that he's a virus Pokemon. And if you haven't seen that Destiny Deoxys movie, you could probably run it on Netflix by now. It's like 8, 9 years old, I think, by now. Anyways, basically Destiny Deoxys, he's trying to find his other Deoxys friend, and then they like interfere with Rayquaza's space or whatever, which is the dragon flying Pokemon that's green. When Rayquaza gets all pissed the fuck off and he started using hyper beams and outrages all over the place. And there's this Pokemon Island, Ash, May, and Ash, May, Brock, and Max go to, because at the time he didn't see Dawn or the other girl, Iris and Cillian, yet to 4th and 5th gen, which didn't exist at that time. So yeah, basically, then they show a 4th generation Pokemon, which is Munchlax, aka the pre-evolution of Snorlax, nothing big right there, Basically, what it comes down to is that, this guy right here, Snorlax, he's going to be strong as fuck. And then Rayquaza and Deoxys are duking it out, and then out of nowhere, Deoxys makes all these clones of itself, which is crazy as fuck. He just messes a lot with electricity that's on that island, the battle island. So it's kind of like the battle frontier, except they'll have 7 places where you get the little mini badges. So that's it. One more thing I wanted to say about Deoxys, it has a really awesome ass ability. I forgot what it's called. And I think it has a pressure ability. I'm thinking about the attack. It's called Doom Desire. Or I think, no, Psycho Boost. Doom Desire was for Jirachi, excuse me. Yeah, you know, he was still psychic like Jirachi as well, except he was a lot more dangerous than he was. Because Jirachi was mostly the good one, and then Deoxys was kind of bad. Not until the end, that's when you start seeing the more softer side of Deoxys, which he actually has a soul, you know? He wasn't a bad Pokemon after all. And yeah, that Psycho Boost is kind of the same thing as Future Sight, except it does a lot more damage than Future Sight, like 10 times damage. A little stronger than Hyper Beam. It's almost a one-hit KO kind of thing, except a little bit different. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about Deoxys. So, coming in at number 6, actually, no, that's Deoxys still. Palkia. Another one that was from the 4 generation, because Deoxys was 3rd, from the Sinnoh region. He was actually the one I liked a lot more than Dialga, because I usually like the underdog Pokemon a lot more than the one that everyone else likes, because a lot more people were liking Dialga a lot more than Palkia, and I decided to go on the Palkia team instead. You know, basically he was one of the first water dragon type Pokemon to ever come out there. Well, actually, no. It was actually Kingdra that was a water type, but he was water dragon as well, but he wasn't a legendary type. See, with the 4 generation, it was the first one ever to be a legendary type. So he had a special ability called Special Rend, which they fixed it up a little bit when they made Platinum, because it made a different noise in Platinum than it did in Diamond and Pearl. And I saw him in Battle Revolution. He was pretty chill, you know. He's the Master of Time. Actually, no, Master of Space. That's Dialga. I'll get to him in a second. Master of Space, you know, basically not one to be reckoned with, forced to be reckoned with, you know. Definitely don't want to fuck with him on a bad day, you know. He was in that Darkrai movie as well, so we got to see him a little bit with the big giant clock tower that they had to fix. He uses a special rend ability, you know. What else can I say about him? He also made an appearance with Super Smash Bros. Brawl, one of the space Pokemon. Whenever you go in that one arena, it turns upside down, left, on the side, everything is reversed, you know. It's really awesome, you know. Another thing that's cool about him, he knows Aqua Tail and a lot of other water type moves, which I think he's still super effective against grass type and dragon type moves, because, you know, it still hurts him, but ice type moves he's neutral to. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about Dialga. And he kind of reminded me of Lugia, but with 2 like arms instead of just hands and everything, so that's why I liked him. Next one up is this guy right here, the Master of Time, besides Doctor Who's from MLP. Or Back to the Future. There's Darkrai, you know? Not Darkrai, excuse me. Dialga, which he was the other one that was the other dragon Pokemon that was Master of Time. He was the first Steel Dragon Pokemon ever to be released. His signature move was Roar of Time, which same thing as Hyper Beam and Superpower, because after you use those moves you have to recharge, so it took a lot of energy out of him. So another thing that was cool about Dialga was that besides being not Fire Steel, that's some Heat Ram. Besides being Steel Dragon, you know, sucks he was 4 times effective to fighting ground type moves. That's the only disadvantage that Dialga had. You know, he was basically a beast, because after they made that Giratina movie, I think Giratina got all pissed at Dialga because he was invading his space. I don't know what it is about Pokemon, but they tend to be extremely territorial, kind of like how animals are in real life, except the only difference is they actually have superpowers, unlike animals in real life. Yeah, basically, you know, Dialga and Giratina, they duke it out, and then Dialga starts getting real weak because Giratina's literally about to kill him and end his life, but, you know, nobody can die in Pokemon because, you know, this is for a kid show, so, you know, they don't want them teaching the kids, oh, like, after you die, that's it, you're fucking dead, you're gone. You know, so basically, you know, with Dialga, you know, being the boss, you know, turning the other cheek, he decides not to fight Giratina anymore because he's getting really weak and he has to recover somewhere. And he also knows Heal Block, just like Palkia and Giratina do. And yeah, he's a boss, you know, he's pretty badass. I didn't like him too much at first, but after a while I got used to him, so he's pretty chill. And yeah, that's it. That's all I gotta say about Darkrai. He was also in Super Smash Bros. Brawl as well. Next one up, we got one of my favorite out of this video, Giratina. Let me tell you something about this Pokemon. I'm glad they made Pokemon Platinum to talk more about Giratina, because in Diamond and Pearl we didn't know too much about him until later on. Then we found out his signature move is Shadow Force, you know. Then he ended up having the alternate form when he put the Grisser's item orb on him, because he's a lot more stronger, and instead of having the pressure ability, he'll have levitate, which was a real good part in the game for you to give him the levitate ability, because I think he deserved it. And plus he has wings, you know? It sucks. That's the same thing I always debate about Magnezone. He should have the levitate ability instead. He has the Magna-Cool ability and then Sturdy, which is stupid, you know? They gave it to Weezing, they should give it to Magneton and Magnezone, you know? Even Magnemite. But yeah, another thing I wanted to tell you about Giratina is that I love the intro music that they put it for Pokemon Platinum on him. He finally got the credit he deserved. I was real happy back then, and I was still working at my real crappy job at that time when that game came out. It was not fun times. I was very miserable at that time, way before I made this channel. That was still like my first year of my criticism of that channel at that time. Anyways, last thing I could say about Giratina is that he's a boss. He was the first Ghost Dragon type Pokemon ever to come out in the history. And he was double affected towards, I think, Ice and Dark type moves, which sucks. So if you had a Weavile, you'd probably take this thing out really fast, which sucks. And what else can I say about him? He was really cool on Battle Revolution. They should have put him in Brawl too, so maybe the next Super Smash Bros. Game they'll make for the Wii U, hopefully they bring Giratina in this time, you know, or any of the 5th and 6th gens that are coming out later on. 6th gen, excuse me. 5th gen's been out for a while already. Yeah, that's all I got to say about Giratina. Let me show you. Next one up, number 3. Number 3 is Genesect. And I know I don't really know too much about this Pokemon. I've never owned a Genesect before, so I really don't know too many of its moves, except the only ability I know he has, I think, is Techno Buster. And he kind of works like Arceus a little bit, except you put these 4 little cassettes into him. One is electricity, I think one is ice, and then the other 2, I'm trying to remember what they are. I think it's poison, because I think Poison Bug is his original form, but then he has 2 other ones. Could be ice and fire, I'm not sure. I forgot what the last one was, but it's real cool. You know, with Genesect, he's got that big ass giant fucking rocket on the back of his, in the back of his back, of course, and this is his red version. The original version is purple, so the red one I think is a special color, I think, if I'm assuming it right. Hopefully I'm assumed right. And 2 other things I would say about him is that Genesect, he finally got his own movie. He's got a special base card in the, you know, the Pokemon trading card game, you know, the TCGs. And he's basically like the Transformer of Pokemon. It's kind of like, not Optimus Prime, because he's good. He's the evil one, so he'd probably be more like Megatron instead of Optimus Prime. And another thing I want to say about him is that he looks pretty badass. He's kind of like an anorexic version of Scizor a little bit, except he's fast as fuck. And I've seen the trailers of how Genesect, he goes into that little like Transformer zone. He turns into a little thing like this with his arms like that. Kind of looks like a praying mantis. And then he goes all fast, and he's got this evil smile on his face like this. He's like he's about to rape the shit out of somebody. I don't know. He's pretty boss, and then he fights Mewtwo as well. We already know that. We're still debating on that, but we'll see what happens if he does get that new form. So yeah, that's 3 for Genesect. Number 2, hold on a second. Number 2 will be Keldeo, and I already did a movie review on Keldeo and the Legend. I think it was called The Sword of Justice. Anyways, yeah, with Keldeo, he was the first water-fighting Pokemon ever. Besides, he belonged to the trio Vaporeon, Cobalion, and Terrakion. You know, first Pokemon of their generation for 5th, and he was basically a boss. You know, with he's got the Sword of Justice instead of Mystery Sword, Sword of Mystery. And in the movie, he's kind of like a pussy a little bit because he can't believe that he does shit, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna pussy out, you know, I can't do this, and like his other friends kept pushing him, and then Ash and Pikachu, they encourage him to be better instead of worse, you know, and then he finally gets up against Kyurem, and he goes into his Revolution mode, bad fucking ass for the win, and even a lot of Bronies and Pegasisters out there for My Little Pony, you know, they love the hell out of this thing. I thought he was awesome too, literally, when he used that Sword of Justice on Kyurem, it was like, he knocked him the fuck out, literally. Smacked the living shit out of Kyurem, and then Kyurem just stopped messing with them altogether. And he's supposed to be the strongest motherfucker ever. Not until Black and White 2, then they're able to DNA, what's it called? They're able to DNA evolve or whatever, kind of like Digivolve with Digimon back in the days. And you guys don't remember that? Maybe you're too young to remember. You'll see. Yeah, with another thing about Keldeo, he uses Hydro Pump as well. He looks pretty cool. He uses it from his hooves like this, like that. Kind of weird, but he's pretty chill, you know. He's all right. He's cool in my book. And then there was a shiny one too. It was a little bit different, kind of like the Shaman Sky form, but a little bit stronger. And yeah, the voice actor that did his voice, I wasn't too impressed with it. because he does that whole telepathy thing, because he doesn't move his mouth when he talks. It's kind of like Mewtwo a little bit, but different, because he's not psychic. Anyways, that goes with him, and the one I showed you before, Shadow Lugia. This was from Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Unfortunately, I never got to play it back in the days, but they probably got it for Wii for maybe like $10, $12 to download, I don't know. Or Wii points, excuse me. So yeah, you could say that this guy, he was pretty badass, so let me show you to his real, true form. That's him right there. He looks boss as fuck. There's somebody on DeviantArt that drew this, so I guess there's a human version or whatever, that they were really into that anthropology kind of thing, which I'm into that a little bit here and there. That's how that furry hentai porn shit started. I'm not going to get into that for another video. Anyways, with Lugia, basically what makes him number one out of the top 10 legendary on my list, because number one, Pokemon Silver was the very first game that I got into. I was just barely starting out to be a Pokemon fan at that time after Red, Blue, and Yellow came out, because I didn't have enough money to afford that shit, plus I didn't even have a job. I had to depend on my parents to get that shit for me back in the day. And God, with my roomies now, I could just spend whatever I want, whenever I want, thank Jesus. Another thing I like about this shit is that Lugia was the first psychic flying Pokemon besides, I'm trying to remember that other Pokemon, little psychic grass, Celebi, which I wasn't crazy about Celebi, but I did like, what's it called, Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. They were alright. The favorite one I liked in that group was probably Raikou. Raikou, he was electric, he was fast, he didn't give a shit about nobody. When they made Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the remake for that, they still kept that element the same way, except they kept that Suicune part in Crystal by itself, so it made it easier to get Suicune instead of harder like Entei and Raikou, It's very confusing all across the board, but you know what? You can get used to it after a while. The other thing that was cool about Lugia, his signature move was Aeroblast, and it was the only one that he could learn at that time. Nowadays, almost any legendary Pokemon has that move, thanks to this mascot right here. Another cool ass thing about Lugia is he was shown in the anime a couple times. There was the one where he had a baby Lugia, and it's weird. How can they have a baby Lugia when that gender is neutral? It's not a male or a female, I don't get that part. Another cool thing about Lugia was that what's it called? He was shown a lot of Super Smash Brothers Melee back in the days. He was awesome as fuck. He was the color silver, which was my favorite thing. And if any of you guys don't know my alternative media shit, my criticism guy channel, I do talk a lot about gold and silver and the end of the world type of shit. So if you want to learn more about alternative media, definitely subscribe to me on that channel. I'll tell you a lot more about it. I don't talk about it too much on this channel because I kind of focus more on video games and stuff like that and movies than I do about end of the world, Illuminati shit. So that's for another thing. Last thing I'll probably say about Lugia, he's a rival of Ho-Oh, which I put him on my bonus list, so let's take a look at Ho-Oh real quick, and then I'm going to end the video here. So Ho-Oh, he was the first fire flash, he was the second after Moltres, second fire flying. And the funny thing about Ho-Oh is that you had to use a clear bell to go get him, and his main signature move was Sacred Fire, which did a ton more damage. I think it was a little bit stronger than Aeroblast, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. And it leaves a burn almost 70-80% of the time. It's crazy as shit. A lot more than Fire Blast, Blast Burn, Flare Blitz, etc., etc., etc. Flame Wheels. Nothing can top that thing. Even Flamethrower can top it. Or Lava Plume. And there's so many fire types these days, it's ridiculous. Anyways, yeah. Another cool thing about Ho-Oh is that I'm going to show you another picture of him. A lot of the people that are around my age, 20, 21 and over, you probably remember this one. Check that shit out. If any of you guys do not remember that, if you're probably under 20 years old or under 21, you probably have no idea who that is. That was Ho-Oh in the first appearance in the very first episode of Pokemon, when it all started. After Pikachu killed all those Spearows and whatever, they saw a Ho-Oh, and the thing is, they changed him a lot, because he was just all gold at that time. And he had the same signature in the old school gold before Heart Gold Soul Silver came out 9 years later. And the last thing I wanted to say, he was the rainbow color Pokemon, so I think he needs the rainbow wing in order to get past that guy that was annoying as shit in Ecruteak City, one of the monks that wouldn't let you pass through, which pissed me the fuck off so many times you have no idea how many times I was so close to breaking my game back in those days. It was different, crazy ass times. Nowadays it's a lot more crazy, but back in those days, it was very well worth it, And with that said, that concludes the top 10 best legendary Pokemon of all time, in my opinion. So like I always say, peace out, bros, women, bronies, pegasisters. I'll see you when I see you around. Have a good day, have a good night, wherever you're at in the world. Peace out, take care, and like I always say, take care, goodbye, and yeah, you guys have a good day, have a good night, wherever you're at in the universe. Alright, peace out, don't smoke weed, and drink at the same time, very bad habit, and I'll see you guys soon. Hopefully you liked the video, thumbs up, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good jazz. I'm out of here. Peace out, later.